Welcome to the first ever Ghosty Girls podcast episode.
Yay!
Woo! So excited!
This has been a long time coming. It's been a long time in the works. We finally got up off of our asses to get this done, and I'm excited about it.
Me too. It's already been a blast, and we're just getting into it.
Yeah, I mean, we started off really solid. We recorded like 5 minutes of our first episode, and then I promptly deleted it. So, yeah, I think things are going to go great.
Hey, things are looking up already. Like I said, it wasn't meant to be.
Exactly, yeah. And honestly, this is going to be trial and error. This is our first podcast that we're doing. So you guys, you're on the ride with us.
Yeah, hang in there.
We'll figure this out together.
Yep. I do want to let everyone know I did brush my hair today for this, though.
Oh, it looks very nice, too.
Thanks.
I did not brush my hair.
That's okay.
So there's that.
That's all right.
All right.
All right.
Well, at least we don't have video rolling.
We're good either way.
So, should we get into it?
Let's do it.
All right. So today we are going to be talking about Delaware's first and only known serial killer, Stephen Pennell. So a little fun fact about Stephen Pennell. Not really a fun fact, I shouldn't say that. But, we put the fun in funerals, so what can I say? So Stephen Pennell was convicted of 2 murders, but he was actually suspected of killing a total of 5 women. He is also known as the Route 40 Killer, the Corridor Killer, and the Route 13 Killer. His reign of terror was only 1 year. It was from 1987 through 1988, which that was surprising to me because I feel like killing 5 women in the span of 12 months, that's pretty excessive. Wouldn't you say? It's
a bit excessive.
He was pretty busy.
He sounds like a dick.
Yes, he really is. And you'll see why.
I can't wait to hear
this. I mean,
this.
Other than the fact that he killed people, I mean, he was a dick. I would like to preface this episode by acknowledging that there is so much misinformation about this case that it's honestly impressive. Almost every article I read had different facts, and it seriously took me forever to weed through all of the information. So, for example, when you Google Stephen Pennell, and I'm sure all of you will after you listen to this podcast, one of the top articles you will see is a series of pictures that actually went viral. And it's pictures of his supposed abandoned house, complete with a creepy doll collection, as well as original furniture belonging to the Pennell family. This is not accurate. That's not his house. I wish it was, but it's not. So don't try going to this house and looking at the creepy doll collection and thinking it's his house. There actually is a doll collection there, but it did not belong to Stephen Pennell. The Pennell family actually lived in a trailer park in Glasgow Pines Trailer Park. And this trailer is said to still be occupied by the Pennell family. Again, with all the misinformation out there, I'm really not sure if they still actually live there, but he lived in the Glasgow Trailer Park. Another discrepancy that was quite disappointing was our local news outlet claiming that Stephen Pennell's first victim was buried in the Head of Christiana Cemetery. That's also not true. I actually visited the cemetery myself just because reading the story of his first victim, I don't know, not that it like struck a chord with me, but it made me sad. It was just a sad story, and we'll get into that. But his first victim is not buried there. Other articles claim that Pennell tortured women in his shed and or his home, but there's no evidence to back that up. The evidence only showed that the place of torture was actually his infamous blue van.
Did he even have a shed, do we know?
He did have a shed.
Oh.
Yeah, and they found some stuff in there that was disturbing.
Okay.
But they didn't find like any DNA evidence or blood or anything in there. So, yeah, he was doing some weird stuff in there, but I don't think that weird stuff included murders.
Boom.
So yeah, sifting through all the misinformation, it was really, really frustrating. And the lack of accurate information really drives home the fact that this case is just not as well known as it should be. And I think that the main reason for that is that his victims were sex workers. And sex workers are unfortunately often seen as less than human. I feel like a lot of male serial killers, target sex workers because they know that it's easy to get away with, especially, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, you know, police didn't really pay that much attention, which is sad.
It's so sad because they're people too. They just might not be in the best spot in life.
Exactly.
You never know what somebody's going through.
Exactly. And isn't sex work like the oldest profession or something? Is it? It's not a fact.
I don't know, but I'm gonna Google it.
You should. Okay. Well, while I'm reading his background,
I'm gonna Google it.
Google it.
I already Googled a little bit, so
nice.
I know nothing about him. By the way, everyone, I'm just listening to this story just as you guys are, and throwing in my comments.
I like that though because then we get your reactions.
You wait. Like I said earlier, he already sounds like a dick.
Yes,
but he's a Sag. He's a Sagittarius.
You know who else is a Sagittarius? Ted Bundy. My favorite serial killer.
I equally hate all of them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I shouldn't say my favorite, but his story is the one that fascinates me the most. And we'll definitely do Ted Bundy one day. But that is going to be a deep dive because Ted Bundy is, he's something else.
2-parter?
Probably.
4-parter?
Yeah. So back to Stephen Pennell. Stephen Brian Pennell was born on November 22nd, 1957 in Wilmington, Delaware, to William and Elaine Pennell. His father, William, was an accountant, and his mother, Elaine, was a stay-at-home mom who took care of Stephen and his sibling, who I literally could not find any information about, so I have no clue if it was a brother or sister, but I do know that Stephen was their first child. What?
Guess what?
It's the oldest profession?
Yes, you were correct. Prostitution and suffrage movement. The world's oldest profession. Labor. I think I'm reading a title of something. So there was a document, I guess, written by Duke University, or they had a library exhibit on prostitution and the suffrage movement. Mm-hmm. The world's oldest profession. Labor organizing in prostitution.
See, we need to respect sex workers.
I feel like that could also be an episode we could cover.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Why not?
We could go into the origins of sex work.
I mean, I'm not going to dive into it, but I'm going to dive into it.
Yeah, we'll do a deep dive into that. So there's not much information out there regarding his upbringing. Nothing really stood out to me that he was abused or that he had a particularly rough childhood. In season 3, episode 1 of Mark of a Serial Killer, they do mention that he had a, quote, rocky relationship with his mother, but they don't really elaborate much on what they meant by that. Stephen was raised Catholic and attended a Catholic school. By all accounts, he was kind and had a soft spot for animals. Neighbors reported that he would help carry in groceries and cut the grass. As an adult, he was often referred to as a, quote, gentle giant type, standing at 6 feet 5 inches and weighing close to 300 pounds.
Damn!
He was humongous.
Whew.
Can you imagine him rolling up on you in the middle of the night?
Could you imagine him trying to walk through a
No.
door frame?
No, I can't. He was huge.
God bless him.
Yeah.
I'm 5'1". That's like double me.
Yeah.
Not really, but you know.
Yeah, he was huge. So his size worked against him in his career choice because he dreamed of being a police officer. But he failed I know, right? So many serial killers and like murderers have like they've had aspirations of being a police officer. I think Dennis Rader and Ed Kemper also wanted to be police officers. But yeah, he failed the physical test to become part of the Wilmington Police Department. And Stephen Pennell himself would later tell others that he was, quote, too fat.
Aww.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of sad. I saw pictures of him. He didn't seem like he was fat. He just seemed like a humongous, like, bear type guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He probably wore it well.
Yeah. He was just big.
Yeah.
After that, he bounced around from job to job, and he couldn't really hold a steady job for more than a year or so. So that's kind of disturbing.
So I wonder, since he loved animals, which I feel like is rare.
It is, yeah.
For a serial killer, right?
Yep.
I wonder if he would have followed a path into like something to do with animals. Maybe it would have.
He could have
taken him a different route.
Yeah, and it's weird because it just there's not really anything in his childhood that would lead you to believe that he would go down this path. And I don't see anything that would have like triggered him either. So this is a strange case to me because it seems like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like every other serial killer, you can look at their childhood and you can be like, yeah, makes sense. With Stephen Pennell, I really could not find anything.
He just woke up one day and was like,
He just woke up and chose violence. It was reported by several news outlets that Stephen Pennell had a squeaky clean criminal record. But I dug deeper into this and I found that he actually did have a run-in with the law when he was in his early 20s. But it was for something relatively minor. He robbed a tobacco shop and he stole some porn magazines. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
bless his heart.
And, he later pled guilty to it, and, that was that. In 1979, Pennell met his wife, Vera Kathy Huber, in a bar in New Jersey. It was reported that Pennell's parents did not like Vera, and that Pennell actually stopped speaking to his parents after an argument between his mother and Vera. Apparently, his mother also did not approve of how he chose to discipline his children. So that was kind of a red flag to me. Kind of leads me to believe that there was something going on with that, maybe some kind of abuse. I didn't find anything stating that he, abused his children. But if your own mother doesn't approve of how you're disciplining them, that kind of, I don't know, that kind of raises a red flag for me.
Yeah, red flag for sure.
He went to school for criminal justice. And then when he failed to be accepted into the Wilmington Police Department, he switched to food service management. And then finally landed in electronics, earning his Delaware Master Limited Electrician's license in 1987, which coincidentally was when his first murder took place. Isn't that weird? He was pretty busy in 1987.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
New job, new you.
So around this time, he was living in a trailer park with his wife, Vera, their two sons that they had together, and a daughter that Vera had from a previous relationship. He was also working as an electrician and worked part-time as a bouncer at a bar in Trolley Square. Something that I found interesting was that he apparently really sucked at being a bouncer because he wasn't forceful enough and didn't have a handle on the drunk people that came in and out of the bar. Isn't that weird?
I'm so confused.
I know. This guy, he's like a walking contradiction. It's I don't know. You got me.
Huh.
So friends and neighbors reported that he often played sports with his kids and that he absolutely loved dressing up as Santa Claus at Christmas time.
I thought you were going to go somewhere else with the dressing up.
I know, right? This kind of gave me like John Wayne Gacy vibes because people in the community thought that he was like this awesome guy and he loved dressing up as a clown for the kids, but then he was also killing people. So, yeah.
Gross.
So on the flip side, there's also reports of Pennell being heard screaming at his wife and kids in their trailer park home. And at one point, there was a domestic incident between him and his wife, which resulted in him allegedly breaking her arm. So this is kind of where it's like, all right, I'm kind of seeing it take a little bit of a turn. Of course, this was never reported to police, so there was no history of domestic violence on his actual record. Basically, Pennell, as we often see with serial killers, was a Jekyll and Hyde type, and he had two very different sides to him. He had the sweet, kind-hearted, gentle giant side, and then he had the piece of shit who beat his wife and probably his kids and also murdered women. So,
yeah, Sagittarius. I'm just kidding.
Just Sagittarius things.
Strictly Sagittarius things. No offense if you're a Sagittarius.
I'm a Sagittarius and I'm offended. Just kidding.
You're welcome.
Pennell was also a self-described insomniac, and he would leave the house at all hours of the night for long stretches of time and go for drives. Then he would come home in the morning, sleep on the couch, and repeat. This is wild to me that his wife claimed that she never suspected or saw anything, but then your husband's leaving at all hours of the night and coming home late, and I don't know.
Could she have been a heavy sleeper?
Could have been. But I think that she did acknowledge at one point that he did leave during the night. Yeah. So it's like, why? I don't know.
What do you think he's doing out there?
Exactly. I
never know what you're doing.
I feel like that's not a red flag. That's like a giant red tarp.
That's, yeah.
A little bit of a problem.
Yeah. That's like multiple red tarps.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Especially if it's happening every day,
Yeah.
every night.
So this brings us to Shirley Ellis. Shirley Ellis would be Stephen Pennell's first known victim. She was a 23-year-old sex worker who was attempting to hitchhike her way home from Wilmington Hospital on November 29th, 1987. She was actually, this breaks my heart, she was delivering a Thanksgiving meal to her friend who was being treated for AIDS.
Aww.
I know.
God bless her.
That makes it even more sad.
I know.
Her family said she was trying to turn her life around, and she was also pursuing a career in nursing at the time of her death.
God bless her.
I know.
I don't even have
heartbreaking.
any other words.
I know. This is the death that really, I mean, they're all sad, but this one I was like, oh, God, that sucks. On that night, she was walking along Route 40, attempting to hitch a ride home, and was approached by Stephen Pennell. That's pretty much all we know, other than her body was discovered dumped alongside the road in an industrial park on Old Baltimore Pike, which coincidentally is right down the street from where we're recording this podcast.
I was on the OBP today when I had to drive 20 minutes to pick up our pizza.
Yeah. Yeah, that's every time I drive by the spot, it like I just feel some kind of way. It just it's just creepy. So, yeah, she was dumped literally within walking distance of where we're sitting right now. She was found by a couple who were looking for a place to park to have a little privacy, if you know what I'm saying.
Brown chicken.
When they saw what appeared to be a mannequin laying on the side of the road, which I feel like I see this in a lot of true crime cases where people see a dead body and they think it's a mannequin because your brain like can't, I guess, process that it's an actual dead body.
Could you imagine?
No, I can't. I've never seen a dead body like that, and I hope I never do.
Yeah, I hope neither of us do. That's terrifying.
Yeah. So, yeah, this turned out to be the body of Shirley Ellis. She was found with extensive wounds, including blunt force trauma to the head, ligature marks around her neck, injuries around both of her wrists that were indicative of binding and bruising type injuries. She had injuries to her left breast. And the weirdest thing about this is that it was found that she had not been sexually assaulted. Isn't that weird? She was just violently beaten to death.
That sucks. So he just picked her up on the side of the road. She was hitchhiking, and that's it.
And he tortured her and beat her to death.
What kind of rage do you have to have in your head?
A lot. He used many tools to mutilate her, including pliers, wires, cables, and a hammer. Her body was found with gray duct tape, which becomes important later. The crime scene was surprisingly clean, with only a trail of blood coming from the wounds on her head. There were no weapons found, and that, along with the lack of blood, led investigators to believe that she had not been killed at this spot, but rather killed somewhere else and then dumped. Another thing that was pretty shocking is that it was right alongside of the road. It wasn't hidden at all. It's like he placed her there so someone would see her. That's pretty brazen. So according to the autopsy, her breast was mutilated with what looked like a plier. And it was determined that she was alive when the mutilation happened. They took photos of her tattoos, and she was at first considered a Jane Doe. And an investigator actually was the one who identified her because she was a known sex worker in the area, and they contacted her family to confirm, and it was Shirley Ellis. All right, let me find the place.
I mean, I'm grateful I have tattoos for that reason.
Yeah, you'll be easier to identify if you're ever murdered.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people will listen to this and they'll think, oh God, hitchhiking, that's so stupid. But what you have to remember is hitchhiking was so common in the 80s and early 90s. So as we see in most serial killers, Stephen Pennell had an extensive cooling off period, which lasted 7 months. So there were 7 months in between his murder of Shirley Ellis and his second victim, who was 31-year-old Catherine DeMauro. I found conflicting reports on this one. Some sources stated that she was a sex worker, and others only specified that she was a divorced mother of 2. So the information out there, it's muddled. Her family did confirm that she frequently hitchhiked along Route 40 and also frequented bars in that area. Not that it matters, but I wanted to get as much information as I could about the victims out there, and it was a little difficult for me to get a ton of information about this case. And another reason is because it was never really given the attention that it should have been given. When you hear of serial killers, you think, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, you think of all those guys. I mean, Stephen Pennell was just as bad, but he didn't get as much publicity.
I wonder if that made him mad.
It could have. I mean, Dennis Rader, BTK, he was angry when he actually, with Dennis Rader, he got so upset that one of his victims wasn't found that he actually called the police on himself so they could go find the victim. We'll get to Dennis Rader eventually, too. Yeah. He's a fucking idiot. So Catherine was found on June 29th, 1988 at a construction site near Route 40. Like Shirley Ellis, Catherine was found viciously beaten with blunt force trauma to the head as well as strangulation marks. On Catherine's body, they found numerous blue fibers and also a piece of gray duct tape. Mm-hmm. She also had trauma to her breast, which was very similar to the trauma that was found on Shirley Ellis. They said that she had, quote, partial nipple removal, whatever that means.
I wonder if that was his trophy.
I think it was. Yeah, that was his thing. Yeah. Investigator James Hedrick also noted that the body seemed, quote, posed with her arms outstretched. There was very little blood and no weapons at the scene, just as the Shirley Ellis crime scene. But they did find a tire track close to the body. Stephen actually got wind of this because he was following, the media coverage, and he got rid of the tires as soon as he heard that information. So they couldn't match up his tires to the tire tracks that they found at the scene. Yeah. So based on the crime scene similarities and the similar injuries like the mutilation of the breasts, they started connecting Catherine and Shirley's deaths. The mutilation of the breasts was what really connected the two murders, as it was so distinct and so similar to one another. And there was also binding on the wrists and ankles. So, yeah, her body was found 3 miles from where Shirley Ellis's body was found. So, I mean, he was operating in a really small area.
Also right down the street from here.
Right down the street, yeah. They also found that Catherine was not sexually assaulted. So, whoever was committing these acts, they were doing this strictly for the pleasure of the torture and murder itself and not for sexual gratification. With serial killers, especially male serial killers, that's usually why they become serial killers, for sexual gratification. So the fact that Stephen Pennell was not doing this was something that investigators were, they were kind of surprised at.
I'm sure it had to be confusing too. Why?
Oh yeah, for sure. One detail about this murder that I found to be extremely heartbreaking is that Catherine's father was so distraught after her death that he actually had a heart attack and died just hours before her funeral.
Oh,
I know.
Bless his heart.
I know. Honestly, if that were my daughter, I'd probably die too.
Same.
I don't think I'd be able to handle it. It was around this time that detectives reached out to the FBI for a profile, and this is what they came up with based on crime scene photos and evidence. The killer was likely a white male, 25 to 35 years old. He lived or worked within a 5-mile radius of the dumping areas. He would be involved in an abusive relationship with a woman, if he was in a relationship at all. He drove a truck or a van. He knew how to use tools. He was likely a carpenter, mason, or electrician. Tell me how spot on that was. Isn't it amazing?
That baffles me, how they can get those almost to a T.
Yes.
It's crazy.
So, yeah, the FBI was right on the money with this one. So, what did they decide to do? Enter a hot police decoy to lure him in. They decided that Officer Renee Tashner was the perfect woman for the job. So, Renee was a badass chick that blows this case wide open. Renee was a rookie cop in her early 20s. And they trained her in street talk, and they put her right in the middle of the killer's stomping grounds in the summer of 1988. And what they were hoping was that she would soon be approached by the killer. So she started her undercover work in July of 1988. Now, this was super dangerous work, but she was described as, quote, gutsy, and they knew she could handle the job. She was told to never get in a car. She was wearing a wire. And she had a rehearsed monologue. Some of the men were dumb enough to give out their actual home addresses when she talked to them.
You'll stupid.
Yeah. I thought that was funny. So, while all of this was going on, we have Stephen Pennell's third victim, Margaret Lynn Finner. She was a 27-year-old cashier at Pathmark, and she was also a known sex worker in the area who had been battling a drug addiction. Yeah.
I remember Pathmark, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She was picked up by Pennell on August 22nd, 1988. Her body was not found until November of 1988 by a deer hunter near the St. George's Bridge. Margaret's stepfather and her brothers grew frustrated with the lack of attention the police gave her case prior to her body being discovered. So they actually went out on their own and started patrolling for the blue van that Margaret's friend saw her get into that night. So these guys actually went out and started looking for this guy.
Good for them.
I know.
That's the kind of friends I want in my life.
Exactly. Yep.
Let's go get these bitches.
Meanwhile, Officer Renee had been going undercover multiple nights a week trying to lure in the killer. And this brings us to Pennell's fourth victim, Kathleen Ann Meyer. She actually lived in the same neighborhood as Stephen Pennell's first victim, Shirley Ellis. I thought that was interesting. Kathleen Ann Meyer was Pennell's fourth victim. This I found really, really sad. On the night of September 10th, 1988, when she was picked up by Stephen Pennell, she was actually physically assaulted by her boyfriend. And the reason that she was outside was because she left the house to get away from him. And then ran right into Stephen Pennell.
I hope.
Talk about a bad night.
Listen, that sounds like a fucking terrible night.
I know.
I hope her boyfriend, oh God.
I hope he thinks about it every day and feels like the dickhead that he is for assaulting her.
Agreed. Ugh. He doesn't, though.
Yeah. That was her last night on Earth. Being assaulted by two men.
I'm not very good on this podcast because I have no words. Stupid.
Yeah. So, like the previous victim, she was seen getting into a blue van. And you know who saw her getting into a blue van? An off-duty police officer. Is that wild?
Finally.
Yep. He was like, blue van, here we go. And he actually got the license plate number.
Nice.
Yeah. So, very, very smart.
I mean, I know it was a different time, but I would never just be like, hey, let me get in your van.
I know.
Right?
It's scary. So yeah, this off-duty police officer, he saw what was going on, thought it was weird, wrote down the license plate, was later matched to Stephen Pennell. The sad thing about this, I mean, other than the fact that she was assaulted by two men on her last day on Earth, which really fucking pisses me off, her body's never been found.
Really?
Yep. They don't know what happened to her. They don't know. But she is suspected as being his victim because she was seen getting into his van. But yeah, we don't know what happened to her body. That bothers me too. Her body's still out there. Probably within 5 miles of here.
It probably is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We should go on a mystery hunt.
We should.
Yeah. I'm in.
So while all this was going on, Officer Renee was still working undercover. 4 days after Kathleen was reported missing, and 4 days after she was last seen getting into this blue van, Officer Renee finally had her chance to look the killer directly in the face. On the night of September 14th, 1988, a blue van approached Officer Renee while she was undercover. She said that she immediately felt uneasy, but she knew she had to hold it together because if this was the guy, she wanted to get him. So she radioed in the license plate number and commented about how the man was weird. She just had a really bad feeling about him. So Pennell rolls up and says his name is Jim, and he begins talking to her. She looks in and she notices that his van is covered in blue carpeting. So what she does, despite how completely terrified and uncomfortable she was able to connect the dots in her head. And she thought of the blue fibers that were found on the victims' bodies. And what she did was she started nonchalantly stroking the carpet while she was flirting with him. And while she did that, she plucked fibers from it.
She is a badass.
I know.
God bless her.
It's crazy.
Quick on her feet.
I don't know if I'd be able to think that quickly.
Same.
Especially if a man was really creeping me out.
Well, did you see the quote she said about his eyes?
Yes. It was like a shark.
Yeah, his eyes were blank, cold, and there was no life to them, she said.
So, yeah, she told another news outlet that looking into his eyes was, quote, looking into the eyes of a shark. He eventually reached over the passenger side to open it, and he told her to get in, and he tried pulling her into the van, which is terrifying.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. She was able to redirect the conversation, and she used her street slang to say, she had a headache from being stoned all day and that she was just going to get out of here. And I guess that pissed him off, and he sped off.
Good.
Yeah. So the fibers that she pulled from the carpeting in the van were then turned in to see if they were a match to the blue fibers found on the victims. As they waited for the results to come back on the fibers, the police traced the license plate to Stephen Pennell, which put him directly on their radar. They immediately began following his every move. To work, to dirty magazine stores, and on his aimless drives around Delaware. Everywhere he went, they were right on his ass.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did he pay for his dirty magazines this time?
On September 18th, just 4 days after Pennell approached Officer Renee, he made his final kill, and that was Michelle Shelley Gordon. This one really pisses me off, and you'll find out why. He was obviously under police surveillance at this point. He was officially on their radar. They were following him around everywhere, and they even tracked him to his trailer the night of Michelle's death. So the undercover officers saw him go into his home, thought that he had gone to bed for the night. They, thought he was okay and wasn't up to any shit. So they left. And he went out and killed this girl.
I need one of those buttons that say, "You stupid."
Yes, exactly. Like you're trailing someone. You're watching them.
For murder.
Yes.
Of multiple people.
Correct.
You don't leave.
In the middle of the night.
You don't leave.
In the middle of the night.
Yeah, yeah.
Why would they be like, oh, he's going to bed. It's fine.
Yeah, we're tired. Let's go to bed too. Come on, guys. Go to Dunkin'. Get a freaking coffee.
Get your shit together.
Yeah.
Okay.
That too. Damn.
So, yeah, after they left, Pennell went out for one of his drives, and he saw Michelle Gordon walking out of a bar at the Route 1340 split. If the officers would have stayed at his trailer to, survey him like they were supposed to, she wouldn't have died that night. She was really young. She was 22 years old, also a sex worker. She was known to the area as someone who would hitchhike a lot. Her family described her as, quote, happy-go-lucky, whimsical, and charismatic.
That makes me sad.
I know. One chilling aspect of this is that, she was known to hitchhike, and she even had a conversation with her brother about it, saying, wouldn't it be crazy if the next person was me?
She said that?
Yes. Yep.
Sometimes you don't want to put stuff into the universe.
I know.
Damn.
I know. That's sad. Her body was found in the canal near Summit Bridge on September 20th, 1988. Like the previous victims, she was found viciously beaten and with marks around her wrist. Her torture was actually worse than the others. He relentlessly beat her with a hammer, specifically her buttocks area.
Oh, God.
Yeah. He cut her all up with a knife. She had huge slice marks going up and down her legs.
Ugh. And
he also sliced off her left nipple. Yeah, I don't know what his thing is with this, but yeah, he tortured the shit out of her.
I mean, it had to be sexual for him.
Yes.
It had to. Ooh.
Yes.
Ting.
Like, he didn't rape them as far as anyone knows, but I can't see how that wasn't sexually motivated.
No.
Like, maybe he just got off on torturing and killing. Maybe
it's possible.
I don't know. It's crazy. So since her body was submerged in water, the medical examiner could not conclusively determine a cause of death, but did determine that she had been, quote, drugged with cocaine, and that her heart stopped from the cocaine before or shortly after the attack began. She did not have the same blows to the head or strangulation to her neck as the other victims had. The medical examiner stated that she was literally, quote, frightened to death. Which made her heart stop. It's unclear if Pennell forcefully drugged her or if she did the cocaine on her own free will. She did have a criminal history of prior drug offenses. Not that, has any relevance, but I mean, it kind of does when you're looking at how she died. I know it sounds morbid, but I would hope that I would hope that she died before she was able to feel any of that torture.
I was thinking the same thing.
Because
it's almost like a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, for sure. So just 4 days after Michelle Gordon's body was found, the results came back from the fiber testing for the blue fibers, and they were a match. This gave investigators the ammunition they really needed to ramp up the surveillance on Pennell. They continued to track his every move and even installed a microphone in his van, which he later discovered, and they watched him rip out.
You're stupid.
I don't know why I found that funny.
I mean, it had to be in a pretty conspicuous place. Inconspicuous? Conspicuous.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Conspicuous place.
Obviously, if police officers are hiding it, it would be hidden.
It wasn't hidden. If he found it that easily.
Yeah. Unless he thought about it and he realized people were following him, and then he was like, oh shit. Could have been.
Know.
Yeah. So police continued their investigation, and they eventually raided his trailer, and they got DNA samples from Pennell. In a shed on the property, they found a TV and a VCR with a porn video called Taming Rebecca.
Ooh.
Isn't that weird? Which depicted a scene where a woman's nipple was mutilated.
So he was just living out this video that he saw, essentially?
Either that, or he found that video specifically because he was into the nipple stuff.
Weird.
Either way, very weird. They also found specific tools that were segregated from other tools, specifically a hammer and pliers. So, yeah.
I want to take my weird statement back because I don't want to, shame anybody if they're into, nipple stuff. Just don't rip any nipples off is all I'm asking. I'm not nipple shaming.
We're not nipple shaming. Everybody is into kinks. However, ripping a nipple off with pliers, that's where we draw the line.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Let's try to not do that, okay? We need our nipples. All right?
Yeah.
Everyone needs their nipples.
Yeah.
Just don't cut nipples off.
Yeah, damn it. That's weird. But not, because again, I'm not shaming you.
We're not nipple shaming. We're just saying don't cut them off with pliers.
Please.
So they also searched his van, and in his van they found duct tape, zip ties, hairs, and blood smears. They tested the hair, and it was discovered to be Michelle Gordon's. They also found a fiber from the shirt that Shirley Ellis was wearing in his van. The blood smear was found to be Kathy DeMaro's blood. The marks on all the victims' skin matched the pliers found in Stephen's shed, and the duct tape was found to have come from the roll that was found in the van.
Nice.
So he was fucked. Yeah.
Good.
I mean, rightfully so, but
yes.
Yeah, he was done. Officers also observed numerous holes in the walls of the trailer. And when his wife was asked why there were so many holes all over, she responded that he, quote, sometimes loses his temper. Red tarp.
Giant red tarp.
Yeah. The fact that she says that she didn't know anything was going on is wild to me. I guess you just want to think the best of your partner.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't shame her, but also, guys, be vigilant. Seriously. If you see somebody being violent like that and leaving at all hours of the night, there's probably something going on.
Yeah, truth.
Yeah.
She was probably in self-preservation mode.
Had to have been. Yeah. Especially if you're being abused, which I would tend to believe that she was.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah. It's sad. It really is.
She was just trying to survive each day, it sounds like. God bless her.
Yep. So, unfortunately, they did not find anything linking him to the murders in his home, which I was really surprised about because he just kind of strikes me as being the kind of smug asshole who would take victims' trophies and stash them in his house somewhere. But they didn't find anything in his house.
Pieces of nipples.
Yeah.
He's got to have them buried somewhere.
He has
in a bag
to.
or somewhere.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah. Yep.
If he took them. We don't even know for a fact that he took the nipples, right?
I would assume that he would have had to because they didn't find them at the scene.
Okay.
They didn't find them at the dumping scene. So what they think is that the mutilation and the torture happened in his van. So if anything, when he cut him off, they would have been in his van. So I don't know. Maybe he threw him out. Maybe I don't even know.
Weird.
It is very weird. In his blue van, they found evidence that showed that the victims were tortured and mutilated in the van. And, this included the blood and traces of his victims' DNA. On November 29th, 1988, which was a year to the day that he committed his first murder, Stephen Pennell was taken into custody and charged with the first-degree murders of Catherine DeMauro, Shirley Ellis, and Michelle Gordon. I thought that was really not karma, but a year to the day.
And that's only 7 days after his birthday. Yes,
you're right. The shitty thing about it is that he never talked about the murders, so we won't even know why he did them.
Yeah.
To the day he died, he denied it. So his trial began in September of 1989, and like I said previously, this was the first case in Delaware history to use DNA evidence to successfully convict a murderer. They used hair and blood found in the van as evidence, and experts concluded that this was a crime of power and dominance and not a crime of sexual gratification. Most of the trial focused on the hair, fibers, and DNA found in the van. The porno that they found was actually entered into evidence that the jury had to watch.
No.
Yeah.
I can't.
I know. So something that really surprised me was that the defense actually thought it was a good idea for Pennell to testify on the stand in his own defense, which is extremely fucking stupid in my opinion.
Well, and you're basically a lawyer, so.
By lawyer, she means paralegal. So I basically know nothing. But what I do know is that it's really fucking stupid to put a defendant on the stand in his own defense.
Told y'all. She's basically a lawyer.
Yeah, just keep your mouth shut and just sit there. It's really bad. Just ask people like Jodi Arias. I mean, bad for the defense. So he testified that he did pick up prostitutes, but testified that the blood in his van was menstrual blood. I can't.
Stop.
I can't. I don't know what kind of a female loses that much blood on her period, but apparently Stephen is not an expert on female anatomy, because what kind of attorney would be like, yeah, that sounds good to say?
Yeah, go up and say that in front of everyone.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Totally.
Pennell was described on the stand as presenting as cold and scary. He showed a disdain for the victims, and that made him incredibly unlikable to the jury, which, again, don't put these people on the stand if you're trying to get them off for murder.
But we don't want to give them any hints, so put them on the stand.
Yes, put them on the stand. I take that back.
Best and smartest thing you could ever do.
Yes. The trial went on for 2 months, and the jury deliberated for 7 whole days, which that's a long time period to deliberate. They returned a guilty verdict on Thanksgiving Day of 1989. And I just keep thinking about that jury. That sucks. They spent Thanksgiving deliberating about a murder on Thanksgiving.
It was probably that one person that wouldn't give in, and they were like, I want my turkey, god damn it.
Yes.
Just pick guilty.
I can vouch for that because I was on a jury at one point, there's always one person.
There's always one person.
There's always one dumbass, I should say.
Gobble gobble to the families, though.
You know what else is really ironic?
What?
This happened on Thanksgiving, and Shirley Ellis, she was the one who delivered the Thanksgiving meal to her friend.
Oh,
isn't that crazy? It's just like a little weird coincidence.
Maybe that was a little nod from her in heaven going, yes, get them.
Gotcha, bitch.
Gotcha, bitch. Now all you jurors go home and have some turkey.
Yes. So Stephen Pennell was found guilty of the murders of Shirley Ellis and Catherine DeMauro. The jurors could not agree on a verdict for Michelle Gordon, which is extremely fucking stupid. And a mistrial was declared for her case. It looks like their reasoning for questioning his guilt in Michelle's death was the fact that she did not have hammer blows to the skull like the other victims. Again, I think that was a horrible fucking decision, but whatever. Another thing that jurors could not agree on was if Pennell deserved the death penalty or not, because at this point in the state of Delaware, in that time period, we still had the death penalty. Since the jurors could not agree on if he deserved the death penalty, he was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. Later on in 1991, Pennell was charged with the murder of Kathleen Ann Meyer after they were able to match her blood found in his van, finally. This is another really stupid thing. In August of 1991, Stephen Pennell insisted on representing himself in court.
Get in, dummy. We're going to Chili's.
And we all know the saying, a lawyer who represents himself has a fool for a client. I mean, come on. At this hearing in August of 1991, Pennell surprised and also shocked the fuck out of everyone when he pled guilty to both the murders of Michelle Gordon and Kathleen Ann Meyer, stating that he did not want to put his family through another trial. So he basically was trying to say, hey, I didn't do it, but I'm going to say I did it because I don't want to put my family through this.
Because he loved them so much.
What a gent.
Super.
Gentleman alert.
Super.
Ugh, I hate this guy.
He definitely went to Applebee's on a first date.
Yep.
But only when it was all you can eat boneless wings.
I forgot they had all you can eat boneless wings. Huh.
Sometimes.
Interesting. I haven't been to Applebee's in years.
I low-key like Applebee's.
I don't have a problem with it. I don't know. I just never think to go there anymore.
Their Oriental chicken salad is
oh,
bang, bang.
yeah. I do remember that.
That's a good
It
one.
is good. They have good
no
drinks,
lo
too.
mein noodles, extra almonds, fried chicken only. Thinks extra dressing on the sizzle.
Follow Alicia for more tips.
Yum.
Applebee's hacks.
Not sponsored, but we'll
also
accept
sponsor.
gift cards.
You hear this, Applebee's? Please sponsor us.
Or Chili's. We'll take either one. Because I'll say it on multiple times. Get in, loser, we're going to Chili's. Or get in, dummy, we're going to Chili's. Because I fucking love Chili's.
Who doesn't?
I don't know. Their chips
Chili's
are so
is
thin.
delightful. They are.
Oh
They're
my
very
God.
thin and crispy.
I
Yep.
can't. Let's go to Chili's for dinner.
We should.
I'm in.
Yes. So after he stated that he did not want to put his family through another trial because he's such a gentleman, he then also told the judge that he wished to be put to death. During his argument, he referred to himself in the third person and said the person who did this should be executed.
What?
Oh, fucking loser.
Yeah. I wouldn't even take him to Chili's.
He doesn't deserve Chili's.
He doesn't deserve it.
No.
No.
So another holiday, my favorite holiday, on Halloween of 1991.
That's your favorite holiday?
Halloween. How'd you guess?
It's mine too.
Whoa.
Well, and you just told me.
Whoa. This is why we're friends.
Twinsies.
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 So on Halloween of 1991, Stephen got his wish and he was sentenced to death. He would spend his remaining time in prison literally begging to be executed. Begging to be executed. And he got his wish. On March 14th, 1992, at the age of 34, at James T. Vaughn Correctional Center in Smyrna, he was executed via lethal injection. He was the first person to be executed in 46 years. You want to know what his last meal was?
Please tell me it was Applebee's.
It wasn't.
Damn it.
French toast, orange juice, and coffee.
Okay, I'm not mad about it.
He was a breakfast guy, apparently.
I mean, I'll eat breakfast for dinner any day.
Yep. Agreed. He had no last words, so we will never know where the body of Kathleen Ann Meyer is. To this day, she's never been found, and he has never once showed an ounce of remorse for his actions.
I'm not okay with this guy.
Yeah. And I found this through my research, and I'll end it on this note because this is just fucking wild to me. Stephen Pennell's wife actually had the audacity to ask if law enforcement still had his van in custody because her kid was getting his driver's license and she wanted to give it to him to use.
Stop. Mm-mm. See, I was on her side. I was on her side thinking like, oh, she's a victim.
Yeah, she wanted that
But-
van back.
Come on.
To this day, his family maintains his innocence, despite all the evidence.
He literally pled guilty.
Oh, but he only pled guilty so he wouldn't put his family through
You're right.
another trial because he's a gentleman.
And a scholar.
Yeah, and a scholar. And that is the story.
Right.
Scholar. He's a scholar.
Yeah, one of those.
And that is the story of Stephen Pennell, Delaware's first and only known serial killer. Wild ride, huh?
Pretty wild ride. I don't know.
Wild ride in a blue van. Don't get into vans, guys. Don't get into anyone's car unless it's an Uber or a Lyft. And just even then, be careful. Be fucking careful.
Yeah, not even minivans. Yeah. They're also terrifying. Except for the one in my development. I told you she has a bumper sticker that says normalize hitting curves. I'd get in with her.
I'd trust that. Yeah. But I wouldn't trust his blue van.
No. It was probably one of those ones that don't even have windows.
Yeah. Also, like, he kind of reminds me of, like, Ed Kemper, where Ed Kemper was humongous, very, very tall. Like, he's super tall, even taller than Stephen Pennell. And it's like, I keep thinking, if I was hitchhiking, would I get into the van of a man looking like that? Because I feel like that would scare me. Just a guy being that big and being by myself.
See, I would say, like, as a woman, if I was hitchhiking, I would only get into a car that had a family or a woman driver. But that screwed people over in the past, too.
Hello, Carla Homolka and Paul Bernardo.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Looking at you.
So, yeah. Don't hitchhike. Long story long.
Yeah, make good choices. Be safe.
Yeah.
Don't get into blue vans. Don't get into anyone's car, actually, unless you know them.
Yeah, brush your hair or don't. We don't care.
Words of wisdom again.
Yeah.
Follow us for more tips.
Love you guys. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, we're gonna keep this going for as long as people want to listen to it.
And guess what? They're only gonna get better. So bear with us.
And by better, we mean gruesome and gory and morbid. Putting the fun in funeral, all that.
We're in.
Yeah.
But also a little terrified.
We'll see you guys next time. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye, ghouls.